and welcome back to the Pregnancy and Postnatal Entrepreneurs Collective podcast. I'm your host, Niamh Cassidy, and today I have a really exciting guest, and I'm really excited to bring this information to you all. Sarah Davis is the author of Baby Daze, a book for new and expectant mums, and is also known as the Parenting Copywriter. She writes website copy and blog copy for small business owners whose ideal clients are parents, so absolutely perfect for all of us. And she also runs workshops to help people write their own copy. So we are going to dive into lots of things copywriting today. But Sarah, for people who have heard this word but don't have a real great understanding of the term, what is copy and what is copywriting?
Yes, well, funnily enough, I only found out in recent years what a copywriter was myself, because it's not something I'd heard of. I wasn't a small business owner, and therefore it's not something I really came into contact with. And it was actually my husband, who's a piano tuner, who said one of his customers was a copywriter. And I looked into it more, and it sounded right up my street. It's so varied and diverse, writing the wording for website, the wording for blogs, and for press release statements, press pitches, even things like box packaging. Copywriting is anything that a small business owner needs in order to get their business out in front of their target audience.
So it's really used kind of for promotion and for helping people understand what we do. And we'll go into kind of the details of those type of things in a little while. So how did you go from doing what you were doing before to becoming a copywriter?
Right. Well, I was a primary school teacher for over 20 years. I always wanted to be a teacher. I loved being a teacher, and I loved working with children creatively and helping them to love learning. And then the education system in the UK changed dramatically, and it was all about hothousing children with complex grammatical terms and kind of inflicting death by PowerPoint. And to me, that was just soul destroying. I loved being creative. My degree was English. I loved words and inspiring them to enjoy novels and debates and discussions and drama and all of those things. And we got the academic results as well. So to be pigeonholed into this space where the children weren't enjoying it, the staff weren't enjoying it, and it wasn't achieving the same level of results because the children's heart wasn't in what they were doing. And it just all felt wholly wrong. So, as I say, my husband said that one of his customers was a copywriter, and it sounded so interesting. And I thought, yeah, that would be something I'd be interested in doing. But at the time, I thought I'd have to go back to a 9 to 5 and learn from scratch. And being a mum and a mum of a child with additional needs as well, it wasn't something I wanted to be doing. But then during lockdown and COVID with furlough, and I was on supply at the time and supply teachers weren't needed, I came across this opportunity to retrain as a copywriter with a mentor, and it was fantastic. And it was like, right, okay, this is what I want to do. People might say you can't compete with copywriters. You've got 30 years of experience in working with big brands. But what I'd got was my experience of being a teacher and working with parents, working with children, working with families, and knowing how to really communicate with that audience. As you mentioned at the beginning, I'm also the author of a book called Baby Daze. It's there we go. And I wrote that unexpectedly while up for the 3 a.m. feeds. Now, I had no intention of writing a book whatsoever, but I've been wanting to be a mum for a very long time. And for various reasons, it just hadn't happened for us. And so I actually became a new mum at the age of 40. And at that point, I was working part-time as a supply teacher and part-time as a library assistant. My contraction started at 10 to 2. I left work at 10 past 3, and I had my son at 5:30.
Oh, wow. That was quick.
It was incredibly quick. And it was like, where's my maternity leave? You know, time to myself to prepare. I've never changed a nappy. So suddenly I was like, I'd done one of the antenatal classes, but the next one was due after I'd already had my baby. So it was like, suddenly I was thrust into the world of new parenting. And much as I'd always wanted to be a parent, the actual reality is obviously very different, and you can't entirely prepare for. And I think while I was up for those 3 a.m. feeds, when my son was about 4 months old, I just sat there in the peace and quiet and just in that moment. And suddenly these poems about my new mum experiences came into my head. They weren't highfalutin academic stuff that I did in my English degree. It was more kind of light-hearted reflections from the first scan to the end of maternity leave with everything in between. And it just came pouring out of my mind, and I wrote them down. Every time I put my son down to sleep, I wrote them down. And it became a book. It's got recommended in Mother and Baby magazine, and it sold over 1,100 copies.
That's
Well, that
amazing. And it sounds like that break of the forced stop that comes when you become a parent, where the rest of the world has to stop because you have this entire new creation that you need to focus on. It sounds like to me anyway, and you can let us know that that gave you the opportunity to dig back into your creativity that you felt that you were missing out on in teaching.
absolutely. And I got invited to do talks at Mother Care and Mamas and Papas. They said if I was happy to talk about some aspect of parenthood, then they were happy for me to promote my book. I was invited to speak at the launch event of Baby Week Leeds to a large group of maternity professionals, new parents, counsellors, all kinds of people. And I spoke about connection, about the importance of connecting with other people when you're a new parent, not just about connecting with your baby, but reconnecting with yourself, reconnecting with your partner. And I ended up doing radio interviews, guest posts, articles. And that's how that kind of whole thing of becoming a copywriter came about, because it wasn't just the falling out of love with the education system. It wasn't just about the book, but it was about all of those things combined. And through promoting the book, I also learned a lot about sales and marketing as well, and about business. So while I hadn't got 30 years experience, as I say, working with big brands, I hadn't been a copywriter from university days. I think sometimes what we bring as small business owners is worth so much more, because we bring our own experience, we bring our personalities, our passion. And I just wanted to help those parents to connect with the people who had the services that they needed and the products that they needed.
When did you kind of really decide that that was what you were going to do and who you were going to do it for?
I decided from day one. I had a chat with my husband. I said, look, I'm going to set up this as a business. And I said, I will need a name. And he was something like, what about sarahcopy.com? Because it's short, it's sweet, it's rememberable, it's easy. And I said, yeah, but I feel like I really want to work with parents. And I spoke to my mentor. She'd been a former teacher as well for years before she was training people to write copy. And she said, do what you feel is right for you. She said, if you feel really passionate about working with people whose ideal clients are parents, then she said, I can't tell you whether to go for it or not. But she said she really wished she'd niched earlier on in her business. And I felt so strongly that that's where my experience and my skills were, that I niched from day one and became the parenting copywriter. And rather than actually limiting the people, because my husband's concern was that I might be limiting then the people that I could work with. But in actual fact, it was the polar opposite, because as soon as I got into those networking rooms and talked about my passion for working with parents and families, I was kind of, immediately inundated with people who wanted me to write for them. And in actual fact, I've ended up writing for lots of coaches as well, because people love the way I talk about what I do and the people that I work with, and the confidence and the trust and the passion and all those things. So to me, it just made sense to do that. And I almost felt by stepping away from teaching that I was letting down children and families that I could help, but I couldn't help in the way I wanted to help. And now I feel that I'm helping parents and families in a different way, because I'm helping people who are small business owners who've got their own families, and I'm helping them to kind of connect with the people who need their products and services.
I just love this story because I really resonate with it. I resonate with the part around wanting to help the services help the family. So part of why I got into the coaching of birth and postpartum workers, because there's so many wonderful workers out there that can do a great job, but they're not managing to find the families, or the families aren't managing to find them that could get their support. So everything that I do is around making sure that those birth workers keep working and keep being able to access the families that need their support. And that's what you're doing as well through your copy business. You're helping these service providers help the families. So by extension, you can help a lot more people by doing that.
Yeah. And I absolutely love what I do. And I love the connection with the people as well, and I think sometimes people don't know what they don't know. And I think things like, people say, well, surely copy can't be authentic if it's not written by the person themselves. And things like only big companies can afford to hire a copywriter, or copywriters, you only need a copywriter if you can't write properly for yourself, and those kind of things. I help people break down their barriers to writing as well for themselves. So I kind of help people in lots of different ways. And I also found that being a small business owner can feel quite isolating as well. And so quite early on, I started a Facebook group because it was a Facebook group that I wanted to be in. I wanted to work with other people who felt like me, who were working with parents and families, and who knew the challenges involved in that, and who knew the joys involved in that, and who could support each other. So yeah, I'm really very much somebody who's all about connection.
Yeah, and that is so important, as I said, especially as small business owners and people who are working for ourselves and probably don't have a team around us, being able to connect with other people who are not necessarily even doing the same work, but are working for themselves as well. It just makes life a whole lot easier, and all of the different connections that we can make. So, if we think about the people that I work with and who are listening to the podcast, doulas or lactation consultants or baby massage teachers. So the people they want to support are either pregnant people or people generally in that early postpartum part of parenthood. So, just keeping them in mind. When you think about writing copy, and, what are some of the things that people need to understand to be able to write good copy if they're doing it for themselves?
Well, to me, P for Parents primarily needs to be clear, concise, and simple. One of the things that I do with clients, I always did it as part of my like a 90-minute call with my new clients to really be able to reflect their voice, their vision and values in their copy. But to do that, I had this 90-minute call where I really listened to them. And I found out that a lot of people felt nervous about writing their own copy. It's actually the biggest challenge in my own business, is writing my own copy, because it's so easy for me to rave about everybody else. I'll say how wonderful my son is, my husband, my friends, my family, the people I work with. I can write copy for my fellow business owners because, I can see and know all their strengths, and I want to help them to get out there. But writing your own copy can be tricky because you need to break down those barriers. Now, one of the barriers is feeling like you're selling to people, because you want to help people. So feeling like you're selling can sometimes feel a little bit icky, a little bit wrong. But in actual fact, if you don't get your business out there and market your business, your ideal clients won't be able to find you. And if they can't find you, you can't help them. Exactly. So, you need to make sure that you are reaching them through your messaging. And the best way to do that is to tell your story. People are interested in your journey, in where you've come from and your own experiences, because that's lived experience and that can't be beaten. And I think when you talk about yourself, it's not vain, it's not self-absorbed, it's helping the people that are going to really relate to you to find you. So talk about your story in your blog posts, in your website, in your social media copy. Tell people your own ups and downs, your own hurdles, your own experiences, and be yourself, totally be you. And it is possible for a copywriter to write for you. One of my clients said, I captured the essence of her. And to me, that was just like, in just those few words, perfect, because your copy really needs to reflect you. It really needs to say who you are. And it's especially important in service with service providers. It's important for people who sell products too, but as service providers, people are going to want that trust, that connection, that empathy, that feeling of nurture, because especially with birth workers, you're working with parents who are often overwhelmed, they're struggling, they're nervous, they want the best for their baby, and they want to feel that anybody that they're going to work with is going to provide that level of support that they need, and they need to really trust you. So if you are totally yourself in your copy, then that there will be that trust element. So yeah, be yourself, but keep it clear, keep it concise. One of the other things I do with people is a copy audit, and I look at their copy and layout, because I don't know about you, but when I go onto a website, if it has all these different buttons to ping me off to different places, I can't find my way back sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, have I missed important bits? And sometimes I have missed important bits and I'm unaware of it. So if a website looks, if it's all singing or dancing with flashing carousels and buttons to click here, there and everywhere, and like 10 call to actions on the homepage and all these things, for me, I'm like, no, don't want to know. I'll go somewhere else, because it's just too busy. And that's for me as a parent of a 13-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like, as a parent of a baby or as an expectant mum, the idea of having to scroll through reams and reams of copy to find what you're looking for was just a no-go. It's like, is it here? Can I see it? Is there enough information that I feel confident in working with this person, but I can see clearly what they're offering and how I can access it? Really, kind of, websites should be really clear and simple. And I talk about having a homepage, which is like your shop window, and you don't have everything in the shop window because it would be too overwhelming. So you have the key things and people get a feel for that in the homepage. So who you are, a little bit about your experience, what you offer, how they can find you, and maybe a quote or two. And that's pretty much enough. And then the About Me page is where you tell your story. And that's all about you and your story in a way that your potential clients will really be able to relate to. And then there's the Working With Me page. And that is where you talk about your process. You talk about why you do what you want to do as well, who you want to work with. So you talk about how you work with your ideal clients. And if you explain how you work with your ideal clients, again, that will fill people with trust and confidence in reaching out to you to start with, because they won't have to ask so many questions. They'll have an understanding of who you are, your process, the way you work. And that's where your values will come out. That's where your passion will come out. That's where people will see that you're doing this because you love what you're doing, not just because it's bringing you income for your family. It needs to do that, obviously. But, you know, that's where your passion, your values and all those things will come across. And then I recommend a services and pricing page because, and again, being clear and transparent, because to me, if I walk past a shop window and there are clothes in there and there's no price on, I don't go in because it's like, there's no prices in the window. It's probably because the prices are high. So have your prices on your page, services and pricing page, and then you're clear and transparent. And again, people can look through and they can see, right, okay, well, this is something to aspire to later. I can't afford it at the moment, but this service or this product is within my reach. So they can see what they're looking for. So when they come on that call with you, they're already really well informed and there's no awkwardness for you or for them. So they're going to feel confident in stepping into that initial call with you, into a discovery call, knowing what they're looking for and just wanting to find out a bit more.
Absolutely. Listening to you talk about the website, I've been looking at mine and going, oh my God, I need to go back and redo it. And it's been on my to-do list for about 6 months. And now I'm getting a push from listening to what you're saying, because mine is definitely a bit convoluted. I have to say, in some of the processes to get around into some of the things. So I think that's really helpful, you know, the importance of the clarity of making things easy for the customer, for the client to be able to understand what we're saying, to find what it is that they want, and that everything's transparent, as you say. And you were talking about that part of talking about yourself.
Yeah.
And how we can be challenged with that. So, you know, when people are trying to write their story or they're trying to portray themselves, but are having some of those mindset challenges around, you know, bigging yourself up or even just explaining it in a way that doesn't make you feel like you're boasting, you know, what kind of tips or advice do you give people around that?
Well, I do an exercise with people. In my message clarity package, like I said, I'll do an exercise with them, and it's I ask them to make 3 columns and I ask them to describe themselves. So just write some words that describe them. And then I ask them to do the same thing, but this time what their friends say about them. And they have to write down words that their friends say. And then I do a 3rd column. Oh, and it all has to be positive, by the way. So things need to be reframed. So, for example, my friend calls me stubborn. I am. But I reframe it as determined, committed, persistent, you know, words like that, yes, it's stubborn. But, you know, you can rephrase those words. You can find the positives in there. And then what you're, you know, because she knows me, she's known me since we were 11. And at the end of the day, it's a really good thing to think about how your friends see you, because it's not always the same as how you see yourself. And then I do, how do my clients see me? So I pick out those words from testimonials and reviews that clients have used to describe me. Then I look at the three together and I think, well, gosh, that's very different. And it's not that I'm a different person to my friends and I'm a different person to my clients, but it's a different relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And by seeing how other people view me, it helps me to recognize my own strengths, my own knowledge, my own abilities, and to view myself in a different way. And so when it comes to actually writing down your copy on your page, you can do things like you can write down, okay, so who are my ideal clients? What are they looking for? What are my strengths? And how can I serve my ideal clients? How can I use my story to put across, because you can use your story to put across your values, your personality, and all those things by just telling your story. People can pick up on so many things because they pick up through telling your own story in your own words in your About Me page. It's not a list of this is what I'm like.
Mm-hmm.
It's this is where I've come from. This is the journey I've had. And through that, they can pick up on your passion, your energy, your enthusiasm, your knowledge, your skills, your experience, all of those things without you having to tell them. It's there inherently in your story on your About Me page. And the same thing happens in the social media copy where you are picking out, you might be talking about and it's something that happened to you, a funny story that happened to you, or you might be telling them about something that you had a bit of difficulty with and how you got over that. So they're learning from your experience. And they're thinking, yeah, I can totally relate. And if she's done it, then I can do it too. He or she's done it, I can do it too. And so it's kind of leading the way. And I always kind of say to people about experience, it's a bit like a bus journey. You know, you get on at your stop and you're working towards getting to your destination. Now, most of us, well, all of us are not at our destination yet. And throughout our lives, we're going to be working towards our destination. Throughout our parenting time, we're going to be working towards our destination. We're never going to be that perfect parent because it doesn't exist. So we're all on those stages. And I always look at it as like, well, actually, you are helping the person to get to a stage that you're already at. So if you're 3 steps along the journey, people are getting on at the first step, you can help them because you can tell them what's involved in those first 3 steps of that journey. And by the time they get to stop 3, you might be at stop 5. So you're further on in your journey. So having that confidence in where you are, you know, because people say, oh, if you're an expert in your field, a lot of people are like, oh, whoa, I don't feel like an expert, but you can still guide and support others. So by talking about your journey, people will learn from it. People say, I can get to there too. And then you're all progressing together, but you're progressing that little bit further along than them. So you can continue to help your clients.
And in copywriting, like when you're thinking about either the clients you've worked with or what you just see out there, what would you say are some of the common mistakes that people make, in particularly when in your niche, you know, in looking after parents? What are some of the mistakes people make in their copy?
I think they try to cram everything in because they think, well, they need to know this and they need to know this and they need to know this bit. And it just increases the overwhelm that new parents are often already feeling. So as I said before, kind of just taking them step by step. So with the website itself and with the copy. So I think people try and get everything in their main website. What you can do is you can write blog posts, and the blog posts that adds to the SEO, the search engine optimization side of things. So it allows your website to be seen by more people by writing a blog post. It can also go into more depth than you will on your website. So your website needs to be fairly basic, fairly simple, but inspire that trust and confidence. And then having blogs on there can then expand on more information. So you can have a blog post about your process that you go through with your clients. You can have a blog post about, again, more about your journey. You can have my top 10 tips for, and things like that. And all of these blog posts will give your clients more information about you without you having to sit there and tell them in a chat. So yeah, and I think like copy needs to be, again, people aren't necessarily consistent across all platforms. So that's really important as well. I mean, there's different ways, different language people use on LinkedIn, for example, compared with Facebook and Instagram, and that's fine. But your message needs to be the same, and you need to be making sure that your voice, your vision and your values is clear are clear throughout all of your platforms and that people are getting the same feeling, because again, people will look at your social media and they will go to your website, or people will see your website and they will go to your social media because they'll want to cross-reference, they'll want to check, particularly if they're investing lots of money in your service or product. They're going to want to say, yeah, this person I trust to work with me with things to do with my parenting and my family, because obviously your child is the most precious thing in the world to you, and finding the wrong coach or the wrong supporter or the wrong play worker or whoever for your family is going to be it's either going to not be a good thing. Well, it's not going to be a good thing, but it's potentially going to cost you a lot of money, because then you're going to have to go and find the right person. So in your copy, being you is what people are looking for, because if they read your copy and they think, yeah, this is the person I want to work with, and you're totally being you, there's not going to be any surprises when they work with you. Everything's going to be aligned, everybody's on the same page, and that confidence and that trust element is just going to grow. It's also going to be easier for you because you're going to be working with your ideal clients, because they're going to be people who want to work with you. So they'll find you from your copy if you are yourself in it.
I think that's lovely. And it's just so important, because sometimes we can think that we need to sound a certain way to be perceived a certain way. And like you said, that doesn't help really the clients build the trust in you as the person that you are. I'll often say to people, it's really important that, your potential clients, they get to know you a little bit, like that they understand you as a person, because they're going to be inviting you into a very vulnerable part of their lives, whether that's, for the birth of their baby or in the early postpartum period. That it's really important that we are ourselves, and that they get a bit of us, beforehand, so that they can see if there's that match. And I suppose something that can be challenging for people is wanting to be themselves, but also when sometimes we're those few steps ahead, or maybe we're lots of steps ahead because we've been doing it a long time, sometimes we can kind of forget what it's like to be back there. And maybe our language has evolved because we've been doing the work for a long time, or where we might have come from a healthcare setting, and that sometimes the language that we would use naturally isn't the language that parents would use. So where do you kind of sit with that around being authentic to yourself, but at the same time bringing in your ideal clients understanding you?
Yeah, I think you need, there's that balance between being very professional and being yourself. And I think, this is why I felt when I became a copywriter for the parenting field, it was because I understood that you need to be clear and concise. I understood that you need to not jargon everybody out. And that you need to reach people at their level. And I think, that's something you do need to get across you do need in your copy. Again, you don't want to sound patronizing. So it's a really fine balance when you're writing copy for parents. And I think if you're a chatty person, then your copy on your website and your blog posts can be chatty. If you're a very reserved, quiet person, your copy will be in a different style, potentially. If you're working with other maternity professionals and you're talking to them in blog posts, then those posts will be for them. You can direct them to those blog posts and you can show your experience and your professionalism and your joint knowledge in there. But when you're talking to parents, just think back to that moment. Just picture yourself holding your small baby and the feelings that you experienced at that point and how you might be feeling, and put yourself back in that position. And you can explain, you can put, so for example, I said SEO and then I said search engine optimization, because when I started out in business, did I know what a landing page was, or SEO, or any of that stuff? I didn't have a clue, So you can put things in brackets. So if you're using initials for something, if you're using abbreviations, then put the actual thing in brackets. Don't be afraid to explain a little bit further. You can do that without sounding completely patronizing. Also, you can talk about we and us rather than saying you. So you can talk. You can do it in two ways. You can say you, but you can also say things like, as parents, we learn to do these things together. And when you say we, they feel like there's that solidarity, that understanding, that empathy, and they will then feel that you get them And if you use that in your websites and in your posts and your blog posts and things like that, they will feel held. They will feel supported. They will feel that they're going to be working with somebody who's going to understand where they're coming from, who gets it from their own experience or from their professional qualifications and things like that. Again, when you write your About Me page, write your story from the heart. The About Me page is not a CV for a job.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to list all your business qualifications and your professional journey. You need to talk about you and interweave those things with your own personal journey that shows how you've got to where you are. And again, with the Working With Me page, it's all about your process. So you're letting them know there in your language, in the words you use, in guiding them gently through the process that will be involved. Again, they feel like they're going to be held and supported. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the image. They are holding and supporting their child, and you need to get across in your language that you are holding and supporting them.
I think that's lovely. When we're telling our story, getting into that kind of lovely language is one thing. What about when people are actually writing promotional information? So, a new class coming up or advertising their services. Do you have any kind of tips or advice on how to approach that?
Yes, I would say start with questions. So, are you feeling like you want to know more as a new parent? Mm-hmm. Do you sometimes overly compare yourself to other new parents and their babies? Ask questions that makes them think, yeah, that's me. Mm-hmm. So you can have 3 areas of need, so 3 things that you kind of want to home in on the challenges that they're having. And then you can say something like, so are you feeling overwhelmed as a new parent? Do you want to learn more about whatever it is people are mentioning? Do you often compare yourself negatively to other parents? Would you like support to feel confident and secure in your parenting? Mm-hmm. If so, I'm so and so, and say who you are and what your role is, and I can help you too. And then you tell them how you can help them to do all the things that they've been worrying about that they can't do. But do it simply in a sentence or 2. Mm-hmm. So you have your 3 sticking points. Would you, your wish point, would you love to feel comfortable and confident in your parenting? And then you say, I'm so and so, and this is how I can help you. So it's making it clear they know that you understand the struggles they're going through. Mm. So they know that you can relate to that. They know that you know where they want to get to. So it's their wish point, because it's all about taking them from where they are now, those challenges, to where they want to be. And you can do that in 4 questions. And then you can say why you're the perfect person to do that for them, to help them on that journey. So that's like 4 questions and maybe 2 sentences. And it's simple and it's clear. And you can do that in your Facebook posts. It can be the start of your homepage, but being really clear about exactly what you want to help them on and how you're going to do that.
I think that's really helpful, because it is so clear and simple. As you said, you've got your 3 challenges that they might be having, or the 3 things that they're struggling with, the place where they want to go, and then how you can help them get there. Because what often happens is people list off the features of the service and say, do you want this? Basically. And I think that can be overwhelming, or people don't connect with it. So what you've said there is lovely.
When I'm talking about my Parenting Business Connections group, when I'm promoting my group and the membership, again, think about the added benefits. So for example, with my group and the membership, people want to get their business out there. So we talk about the networking. So I can say we have networking sessions once a week. We have business brainstorming sessions and co-working sessions. We have a Facebook group. Those are the things. But what I also talk about is the community that we've got, the support, the encouragement, having cheerleaders in your corner, all of those things. And it's similar for people who are birth workers, because, you can say it includes however many calls or workshops or things like that, and these resources, I'll give you these resources. But you also need to put across that you are offering them support, encouragement, that you are their cheerleader in their corner, that you will help them to celebrate their successes. So talk in that kind of language as well. So yeah, that's making sure that you have those things in your copy too.
I think that's brilliant. And is there anything that you would have liked to kind of put across today that would help people with their copywriting that we haven't discussed yet?
just really talk with passion, because I think people who choose, on the whole, and there are exceptions to the rule as with anything, but on the whole, people who choose to work with parents and families do it because they have commitment, passion and dedication, because it's too hard if you haven't got that. You know, it's one of those things that if you haven't got that passion and that commitment and that drive behind you to work with those people, there are easier groups of people to work with. So I think, you know, talk about your passion. Say why you're working with parents, how you've experienced those things. I mean, I worked with a nanny who, she had 15 nieces and nephews. She couldn't have children of her own. She'd been a nanny for 30 years and she was just the most wonderful person to talk to. And she said she wishes she could just do all of this for free because she just loves it so much. And her passion just radiated out from her. And writing her copy, I had to make sure that that passion was in her copy, because she said you can teach somebody to change a diaper, but you can't teach somebody empathy and understanding and things like that. So whether you're a parent yourself or not, if you've got that empathy, that passion, that understanding, that experience, all of those things, then bring that in bucket loads into your copy. That doesn't mean I am so super passionate about this, but it's like, just use those words that reflect that passion, that reflect that enthusiasm. I think your biggest buzz in your working day. So what I talk to my clients about is ideal clients, your journey, why you do what you do, what gives you the biggest buzz in your working day, include testimonials and reviews in your copy. So just drop in, here's what somebody said. I was working with so-and-so and this is what they said about my process. You know, so you can have a social media post about your process, and you can drop in about somebody who said that they felt you really listened and understood where they were coming from and helped them to get where they needed to be. You could have a post about your latest service. You could have somebody who's just experienced that latest service or workshop or something like that. Just a short snippet that can drive it. And then that will sing your praises without you having to sing your praises. And then you can talk about your service underneath.
Yeah, I think they're just so it's really helpful tips, Sarah. So thank you very much for joining us today and for giving all of that really helpful advice. If people want to find out more about what you do, where is the best place for them to connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, so as the Parenting Copywriter on there. I have my website, theparentingcopywriter.co.uk. I've also got my Facebook group, which is called Parenting Business Connections, and that's a free Facebook group to join with other people whose ideal clients are parents too. I'm also on Instagram as Sarah Davis _writer, and I'm on there as Mummy Daze as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And I'll put all of those links in the show notes. So thank you to everyone who has listened in with us today. If you have any comments or questions on this podcast, do send me a DM. I would love to have a chat with you, or just let me know what you thought of it. And if you haven't already subscribed or followed, please do on wherever you are listening. And thank you all very much. And I will talk to you next week.